Chapter 2207, That's right, I drugged you. The ice-blue energy cannon collided with the black energy sphere, unleashing an earth-shattering explosion. The blinding light formed a chaotic stormy void, blowing Zhang Yi unconsciously backward. Yet at that moment, Zhang Yi's lips curved into a smirk. Although Xinglu had blocked the strike, Zhang Yi had also uncovered a critical flaw in his opponent. Having expended every ounce of strength to withstand Ho Tu's Hell's Guillotine, Xinglu was severely weakened, though not killed. Otherwise, facing an attack of this magnitude, his first instinct would never have been to meet it head-on, but to evade. Xinglu didn't dodge not because he didn't want to, but because his power was too depleted at this moment. His body was slightly off balance, making it impossible to evade this strike. Everything is under my control. Although Ho Tu didn't finish you off, I'll deliver the final blow now. How much strength do you have left at this point? It's truly something to look forward to. Zhang Yi glanced at the energy gauge on Ling's body. By this stage of the battle, over half of Ling's stored energy had been depleted. Only when this value dropped below 5% would she be unable to wield her night-level power. Meaning, for the foreseeable future, Zhang Yi's combat prowess remained at its peak. Now it's my turn. Die! Zhang Yi raised his right hand, targeting Xinglu who was gasping for breath mid-air while adjusting his state, and launched his attack without hesitation. His fingers formed a sword-like point, as if an artist sketching before him, his movements swift as if wielding a blade. Yet this seemingly ordinary gesture caused the fissures in the space around Xinglu to collapse. Shoo! Like a razor-sharp scythe slicing through the void, it tore through Xinglu's already scarred body. Once the toughest skin on his surface was severed, the power of dimensional string severance could inflict maximum damage upon Xinglu's flesh. Over a dozen dimensional string severance cuts carved deep gashes into Xinglu's body. Green blood gushed from his wounds, staining his entire form emerald. Seizing this moment, Zhang Yi quietly opened the alternate space. An odorless, colorless toxin rapidly dispersed throughout the space, a blood-sealing poison. This wasn't specifically prepared for this battle. It was something Zhang Yi prepared for every battle. Within his alternate space, materials stockpiled for securing victory numbered in the thousands. These included, but were not limited to, poisons, laxatives, and vast quantities of allergens. Every living being possessed vulnerabilities, and vulnerabilities could be exploited. When facing an opponent whose weaknesses were unknown, he stockpiled multiple options. Something was bound to work. At this moment, Xinglu was the perfect target for this drug. But who was Xinglu? Even battered and bruised, the subtle ripples of the drug dispersing invisibly through the air couldn't escape his keen eyes. Such a low-level trick only made him laugh. A roar erupted from him, unleashing a powerful gust of air that instantly blew the spreading powder away. Zhang Yi didn't care. After all, this space had already been shrunk to a certain size by Xinglu. The powder would only be blown away, not disappear. He continuously scattered the drugs into the air while not forgetting to launch his attacks. Dimensional string severance relentlessly sliced through space, striking Xinglu's physical form. Such attacks were nearly impossible to evade without time-manipulating abilities, for they possessed no discernible trajectory, purely instantaneous strikes. Within a 5-kilometer radius of Zhang Yi, these instant strikes could reach any target's body. Xinglu was in excruciating pain all over. He didn't possess armor as advanced as Zhang Yi's. Forget Ling's human form, even the demon god armor modified from Ichigard's body outclassed their Wulwan Empire's technology by a mile. Trivial tricks. How dare you show off in front of the master? Xinglu growled furiously. Though his flesh ached, the lizardman's massive frame, especially Xinglu's, towering a head taller than average lizardmen, provided resilience. His wounds appeared severe, yet they were mostly superficial. With his rapid regenerative abilities, they posed no mortal threat. He clenched his muscles tightly, stemming the flow of blood. Yet exhaustion now seeped from his eyes. Hell's Guillotine had dealt far more damage than anticipated. Blocking that strike had nearly drained him completely. This can't go on. He came prepared. Those captured must have leaked crucial intelligence about me. But I understand his capabilities far less than I thought. I must find his weakness and end this fight as quickly as possible. There can be no delay. Jinglu had to think while simultaneously fending off Zhang Yi's attacks. Fortunately, Zhang Yi's strikes were now unlikely to inflict fatal wounds. Thus, it was Jinglu who now constantly shifted and maneuvered, buying time. Zhang Yi noticed Jinglu's predicament, yet he didn't press his advantage relentlessly. Instead, he let a smirk curve his lips, keeping Jinglu perpetually on edge. Amidst this stalemate, the medicinal powder had already blanketed the entire space. Jinglu couldn't continuously disperse them. Even if he used the storm to blow them away, the dust particles scattered everywhere would inevitably swirl back with their battle, inevitably coming into contact with his body. He could hold his breath. Underground creatures didn't require as much oxygen, their own cells could store large amounts. But his body still bore the wounds Zhang Yi had inflicted. Some dust particles adhered to these wounds. Once they came into contact with Jinglu's blood, they rapidly entered his body. Feeling these peculiar substances, Jinglu was overcome with rage. Yet without armor to protect him, even his inner garments had been shredded by Zhang Yi, he could not prevent the toxic dust from reaching him. Toxins? Jinglu's mind grew wary, though he remained largely unflustered. He raised his hand, gathering a cluster of void destiny in his palm, hurling it far toward Zhang Yi. A massive ice-blue energy cannon struck simultaneously. The collision caused the immense energies to cancel each other out. You think such crude tactics could truly defeat me? Utterly foolish. Jinglu strained his muscles, clamping shut the wounds to block the toxins from entering his body. Our Wolwan clan's constitution far surpasses that of you humans. Your so-called deadly poison is utterly ineffective against me. Chapter 2208, A Great Tonic. Jinglu sneered contemptuously at Zhang Yi's despicable actions. In his view, resorting to such low-level tactics was utterly shameful for a top-tier powerhouse. Even if one employed cunning, it should be through more sophisticated means. Zhang Yi, however, merely chuckled dismissively at these words. I'm well aware that ordinary poisons hold no sway over a night-tier mutant. Your physique must possess formidable resistance to toxins. Zhang Yi had studied this aspect thoroughly. Never mind Jinglu. Even enhancement humans like Liang Yu, who had channeled nearly all her abilities into fortifying her physique, were now immune to most poisons in the human world. Her cells had undergone complete mutation, capable of devouring any substance that threatened her body and expelling it. Zhang Yi spread his hands. But while toxins won't affect you, your body surely wouldn't reject beneficial medicines, right? Jinglu froze upon hearing this. Beneficial medicines? How could this despicable, shameful human be so kind? But if it wasn't a toxin, then what was it? Zhang Yi pointed at him. Haven't you noticed your complexion looks much better than before? You were just hit by a rules category ability, yet your skin looks incredibly green and healthy. Humans have rosy complexions, lizard folk naturally have greenish ones. Take Jinglu now, reminded by Zhang Yi, he suddenly felt his face grow warm. Such a subtle change would have been impossible to notice during the intense battle. But Zhang Yi's words made him pay attention. A sense of unease washed over Jinglu, though he had no idea what kind of tonic Zhang Yi was referring to. Gritting his teeth, he unleashed the realm-binding chain from the black walls of the space, sending it hurtling toward Zhang Yi from every angle. What the hell did you unleash? Clang! Thousands upon thousands of chains hurtled toward Zhang Yi. Gripping Ling's ice dragon sword in his right hand, Zhang Yi flipped his palm, and the long sword swept out violently. Still unadorned, the terrifying ice-blue energy, a power befitting his rank, manifested as a sword light sharp beyond compare. It sliced through all the realm-binding chains as effortlessly as cutting through instant noodles. One force can break all laws. Facing Jinglu's myriad terrifying techniques, Zhang Yi relied solely on Ling's powerful human body to confront them head-on, needing no fancy tricks to counter. Yet at that very moment, Jinglu finally sensed something amiss within his own body. His flesh grew feverish, blood surging through his veins with increasing velocity, as if a torrential river raged within him. A primal urge surged upward from his lower half. He glanced downward, only to be overwhelmed by an indescribable, searing sensation of shame. It turned out Zhang Yi had used an aphrodisiac. This substance wasn't poisonous and posed no physical harm. Instead, it provided immense assistance during certain activities. When ingested orally, its effects were slower to manifest. But administered through the bloodstream, like in 4-drip, it took effect much faster. It wouldn't kill him, but it would keep his body in a state of constant arousal and make his emotions more impulsive. Zhang Yi didn't expect to poison Jinglu to death. But by binding him to the torment of his biological instincts during a life-or-death battle, his mind would be unable to focus. Chaos. You despicable scoundrel. I, Jinglu, have never encountered anyone as shameless as you. Have you lost even the slightest shred of a warrior's honor? Jinglu opened his lizard-like maw, roaring with fury. The 6th-generation humans truly are the most despicable, dark, and evil race in history. They stop at nothing to achieve their goals, utterly depraved. This time, Jinglu had finally witnessed the full extent of the 6th-generation shamelessness. A warrior's sense of shame? Zhang Yi sneered. That sort of thing was discarded long ago. Anyway, there's no one else around here. Once I take you out, I can say whatever I want afterward. Truthfully, even if someone found out, Zhang Yi wouldn't care. He simply didn't possess that worthless thing called shame. After speaking, Zhang Yi raised his left hand and said with a sly grin, "This is merely the beginning. What follows will be even more despicable and shameless." Jinglu clenched his fists, bracing for Zhang Yi's assault. He still didn't know Zhang Yi's intentions, but as Zhang Yi's left hand scribbled rapidly, the dimensional string severance surged forth. This time, however, the target was no longer Jinglu's upper body. Instead, it was his lower half. Jinglu's battle armor had long been destroyed by Zhang Yi, though he still wore form-fitting soft armor. Previous attacks had only targeted his upper body, leaving Jinglu's torso exposed. At least his lower body was still covered by trousers. Yet now, sharp rips echoed, "Rip." Jinglu suddenly felt a coolness wash over his lower body. The constricting sensation vanished instantly, as if the heat within him had cooled. Realizing what had happened, his eyes widened in shock. Lowering his head, he saw himself standing completely naked before Zhang Yi. This posture was utterly humiliating. Jinglu's heart burned with fury. Yet, as the war god of the Wulwan Empire, he swiftly suppressed his emotional turmoil. Jinglu's icy gaze fixed on Zhang Yi, as if it could devour him. "You think this state of mind can affect me? Ha!" He sneered coldly. "You underestimate me, the great Jinglu. By your 6th-generation time frame, I've lived over a century. What hardship haven't I endured? The endurance of lizard men surpasses your imagination. As long as I can become the strongest, what difference does it make if the entire world sees me naked? Such base tricks cannot wound one with true inner strength." Jinglu certainly had the right to say such things. The training of lizard men warriors was far harsher than this. They've eaten raw meat, even resorted to excrement to survive. It was precisely because of this that Jinglu despised Zhang Yi's underhanded tactics. Zhang Yi scoffed. "What are you talking about? Watching alone would be boring, of course. I've already projected this footage for the entire Wulwan Empire to see. Let them witness your majestic presence." Zhang Yi wasn't joking. The 3 super warships hovering above the heavenly Iron Curtain had already projected Jinglu's image, as seen through Zhang Yi's perspective, across the entire sky of the Wulwan Empire, following Zhang Yi's orders.